Vindicators are the love-hate child of the Luxon and Kurzik heroes Archimedes and Saint Victor. In the past, these two heroes settled their differences for a greater cause, and like then, you don't need to choose between these sides. Vindicators can use both the healing powers of the Kurziks and the brutality of the Luxons. But don't worry, if you get tired of catering to everyone, you'll be able to leap high into the sky to escape all the noise before you touch some grass. And I've been having a lot of fun with the risky playstyle of Vindicator, so in this video, I will detail how I play Vindicator for all the game modes of Guild Wars 2, while only using one set of gear and one playstyle, and only changing a few traits between the game modes so that you don't need to work for hours in the Jade Quarry before being sent to the front lines. First, let's go over the basic mechanics of the Vindicator so that you can understand how they apply to all versions of the build. Your endurance bar, which is the resource for your dodges, will be merged into a single dodge, meaning you are very susceptible after dodging. However, there are other ways to block and evade, as well as give you more endurance using your legend stance and weapon skills, which cost you energy. So managing your endurance, energy, and cooldowns is key to your survival. All versions of the build will use the Alliance stance, so it's important to get used to all the different abilities. The orange skills are the Luxon and the blue are the Kurzik. Each stance has similar skills, but the Luxon versions will deal damage and CC, while Kurzik will heal and grant boons. The heal skill has an AoE effect around you. In Kurzik stance, it heals nearby allies, and in Luxon, it damages enemies and increases damage to them. The movement skill in Kurzik is an evade that gives you resistance, which can help you deal with blinds and weakness, and in Luxon stance, it's a leap finisher that does heavy damage. The range, ground targeted skill in Kurzik is Tree Song, very important skill because it's one of your main condition cleanses. Cast this at your feet to cleanse and heal yourself and any allies in the area. In Luxon stance, it will deal range damage and give quickness depending on how many enemies it hits. Both of these skills will give you endurance the more targets you land them on, so in bigger fights, you want to make sure to use this to constantly fill your endurance bar and dodge more. The stun break in Kurzik stance will give protection and break stuns on allies. In Luxon, it gives you stability and will daze enemies. The elite skill in Luxon is the Spear of Archimedes, which is a long-range projectile with a delay. In PvE, it's good damage because enemy NPCs often don't play around it, so the delay is negligible. In PvP and World v World, it can be good to use in between bursts because it can bait out dodges by making your enemy choose what it wants to avoid. The Kurzik Elite is Urn of Saint Victor. While channeling this, you will receive no healing and lose a little bit of life every second, but you will heal nearby allies every second, move faster, and take 50% less damage. Channeling the urn has no cast time, but dropping the urn does, and it will heal nearby allies and give them boons depending on how low your health was when dropping it. Vindicators can swap between these two versions of the Alliance stance with the F3 Alliance Tactics. Swapping between any legend stance will heal you due to the Balance in Discord trait, so you want to get in the habit of swapping between Alliance stances even if you only plan on using either the Kurzik or Luxon stance. Since the Alliance Tactics is the same cooldown as swapping between your other stance, you can essentially use Alliance Tactics right before using your F1 swap. Then when swapping back into Alliance stance, you can immediately use Alliance Tactics again, meaning you get 2 free triggers of the Balance in Discord trait, which ends up healing you a lot over time. The Grandmaster traits give you a choice between a purely damaging dodge, a purely healing dodge, and a boon supportive and moderately damaging dodge that also gives chill. For this guide, we will only be using the damaging dodge, but the others are useful in other playstyles. Because you only have one dodge and you're incentivized to use it aggressively, Vindicators are always at risk and need to find ways to survive until their next dodge. The F2 energy meld can recover half a dodge, but it does have a cast time which you can't always afford to use if you need to dodge right now. The Shiro stance can provide secondary evades, and the Alliance stance and the Jealous stance can reduce damage taken. The Vengeful Hammers and the Urn of St. Victor can be toggled even while stunned to mitigate damage, but the urn needs to be cast to turn it off, and it prevents you from receiving healing and siphons health from you while it's being cast, so it can be a risky choice. If you get stunned while channeling the urn, it can be deadly because you can't turn it off. However, when you are stunned is usually the best time to use the urn to reduce damage taken. You can swap legends, which will remove the urn, allowing you to quickly mitigate a heavy attack and then disable it with no cast time, minimizing the amount of life the urn leeches from you. Swapping to Luxon stance won't remove it, only swapping fully to your other stance. Also, if you want to reduce damage while holding the urn but then want to use Tree Song or Selfless Spirit before you swap stance, you don't need to sit through the entire urn drop animation. You can cast a skill and then swap legends before the skill finishes, which will remove the healing prevention effect on the urn right before the heal lands on you. The equipment I'm using is full Berserker trinkets and then Marauder armor with durability runes. I take a Berserker greatsword with the cleansing and energy sigil, and then Berserker swords with cleansing and energy as well. It goes without saying that dodges are essential to Vindicator, so the energy sigils are a must. A little extra defense is nice to survive in between your dodges, but if you really only care about damage, then you can change to full Berserker everything with Scholar runes and Force sigils instead of cleansing. Both the Greatsword and Sword sets have defensive abilities on them, such as the block or evade, which can be useful in between dodges, but also the use of 2 aggressive sets allows extremely heavy combos. For open world PvE, the traits I take are Devastation and Invocation. Take all the damage modifiers in Devastation, and then Dance of Death, which will give you stacks of battle scars whenever you apply a stack of vulnerability. Battle scars will make your attack steal life. Greatsword 1 and 2 will give vulnerability. The Sword 4, the big damage dodge also does, and so does the Luxon heal skill. Using an elite skill also refreshes exposed defenses, which will give vulnerability on your next attack when you use an elite skill. Along with the passive regeneration you'll get, the lifesteal helps you to stay alive while still pushing out big damage, and when you're low on life, you'll get a lot more healing from Dance of Death and from the Urn of St. Victor, which reinforces staying alive in those risky situations. In Invocation, take Cleansing Channel for the cleanse on legend swap, not including the use of Alliance tactics. Incense Response will give a lot of might, which will scale well with the Notoriety trait, and Roiling Mists will double the effect of Fury, which you will easily have permanently so you can get to 100% critical chance. In Vindicator, I take Leviathan Strength, which gives more damage when endurance isn't full, so always dodge before doing a big burst. Song of Arboreum gives good vigor synergy, but because we'll be using the Orion Truffle and Meat Stew, which increases your endurance regeneration and does not scale well with vigor, it's actually better to go for Angcian's Trust for flat endurance gains when swapping legends, including Alliance tactics. The dodge we'll take is Forerunner of Death. Dodging will do insane damage, give a buff to you that gives extra damage, and will put vulnerability on the target so that they receive more damage. And you'll be low on endurance to do more damage from Leviathan Strength. This means that you will always want to dodge before setting up a burst. You can precast the Spear of Archimoris, then use Scavenger Burst, which gives Fury and Quickness, then use Reaver's Rage, which dazes, and since CCs give Fury, and Fury will give you Might, using these skills will give you a lot of damage modifiers. Use Greatsword 5 and Sword 4 as your main priority, because they do the most damage and will hit many times to give more life stealing from battle scars. Otherwise, use your Sword 2 and Greatsword 2 and 3. Save the Greatsword 4 and the Sword 3 as defensives, and use the Sword 5 for mobility. Swap to Jealous stance when you run out of energy, and channel the Vengeful Hammers when you have excess battle scars or want to mitigate damage, and use the Inspiring Reinforcements for more stability if necessary. Go into Kurzik stance when necessary to heal or mitigate a big attack, but otherwise just keep dodging when at full endurance, and swapping weapons when you're out of skills to use, and legend stances when you're out of energy. For World vs. World, take the Shiro stance instead of Chalice, and take the same traits except for aggressive agility, which will remove immobilize whenever you use a movement skill, which is the worst condition to get on you in World vs. World. Then take Charged Mists, which will give you an extra 25 energy when swapping legends below 10 energy. If you can reliably perform the swap below 10 energy, you can create a vast amount of options for combos and movements to survive. Especially with the Shiro stance, if you have 75 energy, you can basically do 2 Riposting Shadows in a row, which will not only give you extra evades, but they'll give you some endurance back to help you get your next dodge. Also, since we're taking Angxian's Trust, never swap legends if you're at full endurance, or you'll waste that endurance. You may notice that the Greatsword and Double Sword sets have similar functions, and while Vindicator is very telegraphed and easy to play around, most classes can't deal with an onslaught of several heavy damaging attacks from 2 sets of aggressive weapons because they run out of dodges or cooldowns before you run out of damage, so your strength is through persistence and brute force. However, it's still risky to go in without cooldowns or resources, so you want to learn how to conserve your energy and then use it all in one burst, then back off and recharge, then do it again. So where is your burst? If you're hitting a single target, the Sword 2, 3, and Greatsword 5 do good damage, and since the Sword 3 and Greatsword 5 do multiple hits, they can be improved greatly with the impossible odds when in Shiro stance. If you have your Enchanted Daggers heal skill up at the same time, this is a lot of things happening at the same time, but not everyone is going to just sit there and take your full burst. You need to bait out cooldowns and pressure by dodging. When you dodge, most players are going to dodge as well to avoid it, but then they have one less dodge. Greatsword 3, Sword 4 are nice chills / immobilizes to set up more damage from Greatsword 2 or Sword 5. Then when you find a low target that's easy to kill, you go in for the burst. But once you've gone in, you need to be able to get out. Phase traversal can be used to teleport to neutral mobs or structures out in the world so you can get away from pursuers. Also, you want to get used to controlling movement skills like Riposting Shadows and both of your leaps in Alliance stance. If you use the About Face technique with free camera, you can battle dance backwards, then Alliance tactics, then Nomads advance forwards for a double leap in the direction you want. Kite and cleanse yourself with Tree Song, or use Scavenger Burst and Spear of Archimedes to try to get out more cooldowns of your enemy while waiting for your own cooldowns, then go back in for your next burst. In PvP, take the Berserker Amulet with the Divinity Runes. Double Energy Cleansing. Replace the Charge Mist trait, which is nerfed in PvP, with Song of the Mist, which will give you Endurance and Quickness whenever you swap legends, depending on which legend you swap into. And it will also do a packet of damage, which can be nice for removing blinds. Now, the role of Vindicator versus the role of Herald is a little bit more of an assassin. Herald more goes into fights and just does a ton of pressure until the target dies or they die. But the Vindicator is way more squishy, so they need to bait with Scavenger Burst and with the Spear of Archimedes, and then wait for the right moment to go in. Then when they do go in, they have to know what cooldowns they have to get out. So you can see there I used Riposting Shadows, my Greatsword 4, and then I used Energy Meld to get another block back, and that's really necessary for you to survive when you're getting focused like that. And if you don't do that, you're going to die extremely quickly. So like when you're in the middle of a dodge, you have to be thinking constantly, okay, where's my next evade? Do I have an evade? If not, use the urn to reduce damage, or, you know, play aggressively so that the enemy has to at least trade damage with you, because you've got a lot of damage at least. So now my teammates have died. I have to leave. I can't play aggressively in this fight because, you know, it's dangerous. But my teammates do arrive, so I port back in, cleave out the down body, and I need to resustain. I'm swapping with the heal skills, and that gives me a full heal. There is a lot of sustain on Vindicator, but it is squishy, so you need to know when to leave so that you don't just instantly die. I land a 6k dodge, scavenger burst on this mechanist, and my sword 2 for 4k, so we get them down, but they rally from my teammate. I want to back off again and pool my energy to wait for a big burst. Now I do it, and I swap legend and also do a big scavenger burst into Nomad's Advance and actually cleave out the body before they can even get a chance to res. Now my Spear of Archimedes can be used here. I scavenger burst again, land a lot of damage here, but yeah, I'm under a lot of pressure. I'm going to line of sight back here, use my energy meld to get a dodge, and this Untamed has just used their elite skill, so there's not really much I can do to them. So I'm going to kite off, and Untamed is not a really good class for me to fight anyways because they have a lot of weakness, which counters me. So I'm going to wait for my cooldowns, go back in. Now I've got another dodge, but I use it a little bit early. So the thing about the Vindicators kind of like rhythm is you want to go in, do your burst on them right on top of them so that they have to dodge, and then you want to dodge on them so that they have to dodge another dodge, and then from there you can follow through with your other weapon sets bursts. So you have like 3 bursts in a row, and a lot of times players just don't have that many resources to survive it. So you need to be aggressive and understand, you know, is this a situation where I need to survive? Then save your energy for like evades and stuff. But if it's a situation where you need to kill, then you've got the tools to do so. We're going to go in here and try to scavenger burst from range. Doesn't land because they block, but once again, we're getting out their cooldowns. I use my Reposing Shadows to get out a little bit of a better positioning. I dodge, and their Virtuoso just eats it because of all the hectic stuff going on. I use Reaver's Rage here, which is actually quite a defensive skill because it's a very quick cast, and it will daze enemies in melee range. So it's quite good for relieving like the pressure from those aggressive melee classes on you. So even when you're in Luxon stance, you have some defenses. You know, you've got the Kurzik stance has Battle Dance, you've got the Urn, you've got Reposing Shadows in Shiro, and you've got the Sword 3 in your sword, and then you've got Great Sword 4. So you've got defenses everywhere. You just got to know where they are and use them and save energy for them when appropriate. Now my teammates are going to rally there, so I back off again, regroup with my Chronomancer, and I see that they're going in very aggressively on the Reaper, and I can help them now, but I'm playing pretty safely because I know that someone's at far and they could potentially come in here. So I'm just trying to be careful, but my Chronomancer is really low, so I play aggressively again to try to peel for them, but they've already left, and now I'm playing extremely aggressively out by a Untamed, which I don't want to be doing, so I am probably going to die here because the Untamed is going to take me out with their longbow. The Herald respawns anyways, so I'm 100% dead here. So yeah, you got to be careful. So what happened there is I played aggressively, and I thought, you know, my Mesmer's with me, but really the Mesmer was leaving because they were too low. So my lack of awareness got me killed. You really need to play like an assassin and go in when it's appropriate to, and get out when it's not appropriate to go in. So yeah, it's really important to be aware of your rotations and choosing your fights. And not everyone likes that playstyle, but I think a lot of people do like that playstyle because it allows you to play an extremely aggressive damage role, as you can see here with my 7k dodge. My Greatsword 5 also going to do a lot of damage here, and the Reaper's really low. I have to Reposing Shadows here. I could have energy melded here to get my second dodge, but I was panicking and didn't use it. But yeah, I could have prevented a lot of damage there if I use energy meld. I use the urn here just to heal a little bit. The urn is actually really good at kiting as well because it gives you movement speed. And yeah, my ally is really low here. I land a nice scavenger burst and we're gonna revive them. So at this point we see their mechanist is here. I'm gonna port on them, use my sword 3 and impossible odds. They take a lot of damage but go into S. Now their herald is respawning again, and if I had played too aggressively there, I would have probably died. So backing off there, I kind of learned my lesson. So I see their herald is going for the buff, and I actually want to stop them from getting that because it's pretty valuable. So I poured in right before they cap it, and I don't land too much burst, but I play safely because I'm waiting for my dodge. Now that I have my dodge, I'm going to go in aggressively, use my sword 3. They use theirs as well, but then I have dodge and they don't really have any follow through. So I'm able to back off here and wait for my dodge again. I do my burst and then I evade their burst, and then they have to kind of position or get out of my dodge to survive. So you can see how the dodge really pressures 1v1s hard because it gives me an attack and it can evade their attack. So if you use it at the correct timing and actually get value out of the evade, it really does help you play aggressively in those kind of like assassin situations where you're going to get counter pressured, but they also need to be killed as fast as possible, right? It's aggressive and defensive at the same time. So we get the buff and we're going to head into mid. I believe that's a Reaper. So I'm going to play a little bit carefully here. I know they have staff, so I don't want to take too much damage there. I'm going to actually use the Spear of Archimedes, and that gets line of sighted, and I'm taking a lot of damage, so I have to be careful. I use sword 3, riposting shadows, and my block to get out. I'm going to use my energy meld here as well, if I can. My next dodge is available. They dodge it, but a little bit too early, so I land my entire 5,000 damage dodge on them and just finish them off with Scavenger Burst. Now their Untamed is here, but we have like 4 players here, so we can easily just take them out. And they knock me back, but I have my sword 5 to get back in. I'm just waiting, probably. Yeah, just waiting for them to use their cooldowns. Scavenger Burst there finishes them off. Really important skill to understand the range of so that you can really secure those kills. I'm caught out of position here, so I use my Nomad's Advance. I use the Urn because I have nothing else, and that prevents quite a bit of damage. And now I'm stuck on the node versus Herald. I do my sword 3 into the dodge. They block it, so I have to riposting shadows out. And now my teammates are here, so I survive long enough for my teammates to help me. And now we can just play very aggressively. I use my sword 3 with impossible odds to get a lot of damage. And yeah, you really don't want to use impossible odds too much, but since we're 2v1ing here and it really works well with the sword 3, you use impossible odds. Or if you're like leaving Shiro stance, you might as well just use up the last of your energy. So that is how you play the Vindicator in PvP and all game modes. If you like this content, then give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like more. And if you want to support me more directly, you can become a patron, and I would greatly appreciate that. So having said this, I hope you enjoy the Vindicator class, and I will see you all next time.